Merry Christmas!
Welcome in, Whiskey Freaks. It's the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. I'm John Stark, and I want to wish all y'all a very Merry Christmas, and of course, a very Happy New Year. Today I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. But yeah, no, we will not be doing that. But I mean, I guess we could still kick some ass, but maybe not in a rowdy Roddy Piper kind of way. More like a high-proof pour that warms your soul but ruins your weekend kind of way. Yeah, it's true, guys. I'm back today, kids. And today, we're going to focus on nothing but bourbon-y goodness because I got all kinds of things to throw your way. And we might just learn something while we're at it. I got a bit of bourbon news and another Christmas gift idea from our good friend and NFL great, Terry Bradshaw. I want to talk about Beavis and Butt-Head today. And I want to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've got something on my chest that I need to get off it, and I'm going to do it here on the podcast today. And finally, I do a quick review of Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend, Batch 228. So here's the deal. Lasso Motel Whiskey. Remember these cats? I told you all about them after the St. Louis Bourbon Festival. And I talked about them because they were the very first table that I stopped by at that event. Well, they're up to big things, evidently. And here's the scoop. The top shelf, okay, here we go with another award. The Top Shelf 2025 Awards, whatever that is, they just crowned the world's best new bourbon, and it's something called Darts Cigarette Blend Bourbon, and it comes from Lasso Motel Whiskey down in Dallas, Texas. Cigarette Blend. Now, in my opinion, I mean, this is a super bold move, especially in 2025, right? Today in the world we live, to even say the word cigarette, yeah, let alone build a bourbon around it, they say it's built to pair with an actual cigarette, and it comes with tasting notes like leather, toffee, tobacco, light vanilla, and dried apricot. So basically, it sounds like they distilled this stuff behind a Waffle House at like 2 a.m. in the morning. You can grab a bottle on Sealbox for an amazingly decent price for something this unique. In my opinion, $74.99. And that's surprisingly reasonable for something this weird. Now, founder Devin Odell, he said he wanted a cigarette blend because everyone already does cigar blends, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in this episode. And so that's a fair statement, right, from Mr. Odell. Now, he said the brand launched in 2024 and has been scooping up awards ever since. And their 18-year American straight whiskey, which I also talked about on the podcast that I tasted at the St. Louis Bourbon Festival, and that one has Best in Show multiple times. And I can see why, based on how much I enjoyed it. So they're clearly doing something right at Lasso Motel Whiskey. Now, where is this whiskey actually coming from? Well, if you remember, I told y'all they're not shy about telling where their whiskey comes from. Transparency is not a problem with Lasso. And Darts itself is distilled by Green River. It's got a mash bill of 70% corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley. Then it's finished in Armagnac, sherry, and cognac barrels, which gives it a lot more depth than the name cigarette blend would suggest, say the good folks at Lasso. And so there you have it, guys. Cigarette bourbon. It's officially a thing, whether we ask for it or not. Now, Terry Bradshaw, football great. Everybody knows him. I think he was on the Steelers. He won a number of Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, back in the 70s, right? He was their quarterback. And this dude, he's basically into everything now. He was on, I think he was on The Masked Singer. He's recorded music. The guy's going nuts. And now he's got something the whiskey freaks might just care about. So here's the rundown. Terry Bradshaw has just put out a limited edition holiday bundle. And yeah, it's exactly what you think a Terry Bradshaw bundle would be. You get a bottle of the Bradshaw Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, which he's also into, the Bradshaw Family Cookbook, and a bottle of Bradshaw Bourbon Barbecue Sauce. And the whole thing is only available at bradshawbourbon.com. They're not paying me. This just looked interesting to me. I both like bourbon and barbecue and football. This is available. This package is available for really a low price of $79.99. So I mean, that sounds to me, even if the bourbon's just decent, it sounds like kind of fun for somebody who loves bourbon or barbecue or both. The bourbon comes from Bluegrass Distillers in Midway, Kentucky. I tasted the very first barrel from Bluegrass Distillers umpteen years ago, and it was a very young whiskey. I won't comment on that right now. I don't have the bottle anymore. It was not one that I collected or kept. So anyway, evidently it's been a number of years. My guess is they've really got everything figured out. And this particular whiskey has a mash bill of 70% corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley. Wine Enthusiast, if you're into Wine Enthusiast, it gave it a 91 score, which is pretty solid. It's bottled at 51.9% ABV because that matches Bradshaw's career pass completion percentage. So subtlety, definitely not their goal here. And more fun facts about Terry Bradshaw. The cookbook, it dropped in September of this year, and somehow it ended up on USA Today's bestsellers list. It includes recipes from Terry, his wife, Tammy, his daughters, Rachel and Lacey, and yada, 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 yada. The whole family got involved in this cookbook. And they, it looks like his son-in-law created the barbecue sauce. So he's an award-winning chef, and that dude runs something called Ham's Meat Market in Texas. Never been there. May have to hit it up when I get down that way. And so there you have it, and there it is. And you and me, well, now we know way more than we ever wanted to know about NFL great Terry Bradshaw. Now, you're probably wondering why in the hell I'm bringing up Beavis and Butt-Head today on a bourbon podcast. And that's a damn good question. Sort of. See, I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm old enough to remember the original episodes back in, I think Mike Judge dreamed this up, back in 92-ish. And the original series ran for like 6 or 7 years. I was there for all of it. And I think there was at least one movie, maybe two. And well, now we get a new season of Beavis and Butt-Head on Comedy Central. It's been recording on my DVR now for a couple months, and I just haven't gotten around to it. Oh, and fun fact, Beavis and Butt-Head lived in, I think if you guys have watched the show, this will be a flashback for you. They lived in Texas, in the town of Highland, and that's why they went to Highland High. So I bring all this up to say I binge watched a ton of the newest episodes that came out, I think back in September. And like I said, I've got a ton of them on the DVR. I watched a bunch of them the other night, and I was not disappointed. I really kind of forgot how therapeutic stupid comedy can be. And the wild thing is, these guys, it still works. I don't know how Mike Judge keeps these two kids who are, basically 15 years old, while the world around them jumps from VHS tapes to TikTok, but he does. And the new episode leans hard into that. They're still doing their classic crazy shit, but now they're reacting to modern stuff that absolutely should not be in the hands of Beavis and Butt-Head. It's like giving a toddler a chainsaw. Nothing good is going to come out of that. But you just can't look away. And in some episodes, they're actually old men. So they're not 15. They flash forward in their lives. So anyway, it's very interesting. It adds a whole new dimension to the whole shtick. And no, they're not any smarter. They're just older. My bottom line here for y'all, again, if you were ever a fan, this season's legit. It's worth your time. And it's the same energy. It's just plugged into 2025. And if you've never watched it, well, honestly, give it an episode. And I think you'll know within like 90 seconds if it's your type of dumbass or not. Spoiler alert, they drink beer, they put whipped cream on pizza, and Beavis develops a nut allergy. And that's the only spoilers I'm going to give you. And don't worry, you're going to get Mr. Van Driesen, you're going to get Tom Anderson, you're going to even get Todd, the dude with the muscle car and the epic mullet. All the usual suspects are back, and in my opinion, it's great. So That's my quick Beavis and Butt-Head check-in. Let me know if you're watching it. Let me know if you hate watching it or if you're just here for the nostalgia. Honestly, to me, it was the nostalgia, but turns out it's pretty fantastic. We usually talk bourbon here, but every now and then, as you already know, and you've noticed today, we sometimes get lost in pop culture, if that's what you want to call Beavis and Butt-Head. But sometimes I like to wander into the world of music, and it's usually yacht rock. But today I want to wander into straight up rock and roll. And I want to talk about something that actually means a lot to me. My podcast, right? Hope you like it, but this is just me kind of ranting, getting this off my chest. Now, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and just saying those words sometimes pisses people off because of the history behind some of the things they do and don't do there. Well, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just announced this year's inductees. Actually, it was several weeks ago, but the esteemed institution, and they're in Cleveland, Ohio, they announced Chubby Checker, and they inducted them. Chubby Checker, Joe Cocker, Outkast, Cyndi Lauper, and those are all fine choices, right? But they finally, after decades of waiting, they finally put Bad Company in. Now, I was thrilled to see it. Then I watched the ceremony, and something hit me square in the chest. They didn't induct. They didn't even mention Brian Howe, the lead singer and frontman of Bad Company for nearly a decade. It was freaking unbelievable.
Relax.
I know, but I can't relax. Not on this one. And I get it. Some of you folks are thinking, who gives a damn? Well, I do, and I care because I lived it. Bad Company with Brian Howe at the front. And I saw Brian after he was pushed out in 1994. I saw Bad Company with him as the frontman. This dude, he gave them 3 strong albums and brought real life back into a band that really had been fading. Now, let me be clear. I love the classic Bad Company stuff. And some of you guys listening have no idea what that I'm talking about. But just bear with me here for one more minute, guys. I love the classic Bad Company stuff. Silver, Blue, and Gold, Rock and Roll Fantasy, Feel Like Making Love, all the early hits. And Paul Rodgers, he was the front man at that time. He was a huge part of that magic. But guys, after a long run, Paul just stepped away. He headed out to do his own thing, and that was his choice to do so. He left the band. No hard feelings, I guess, but he left on his own accord. He hit the road. Then, when Brian Howe stepped in, something real happened. He didn't replace Paul, because nobody replaces Paul. But what Brian did, he gave the band a second wind. He took a tired group of old rockers, and he got them riding and touring and sounding fresh again. From 1986 to 1994, he was the reason they were back on the charts. He wrote the hits. He delivered every night. And then the band threw him out. And here's the part, because of politics, by the way. His politics didn't agree with theirs. I'm not going to go into all that, but it's my opinion. And here's the part some people hate when I say it, but I believe it all the way down to my bones. Brian Howe was actually a better vocalist than Paul Rodgers, too. And don't come at me, bro. Nah, I didn't say he was a better legend than Paul. Not a better frontman, maybe, but he was a better vocalist. When Brian sang, you heard power, you heard clarity, you got emotion that felt real. And in my humble opinion, he had a top-tier rock voice that never really got its due. Now, if you listen, do it for me, guys. If you listen to the album Holy Water, or if you listen to the song Holy Water, or How About That, or If You Needed Somebody, you hear a dude singing with everything he had. Brian gave Bad Company a sound that filled arenas and hit the radio hard. The songwriting even got sharper. The songs had more meaning if you're into that sort of thing. The vocals punched you in the gut. Now, Paul, he may have lit the spark in the 70s, but Brian kept the fire alive when the band needed it most. That's why the Hall of Fame, these shenanigans they pulled here, the shunning of Brian Howe, really, it just really pissed me off. And get this. This pissed me off too. Mick Fleetwood, he comes out on stage to honor the band. And guess what? He didn't say a word about Brian. And guess what? Every song they played was from the 70s. Nothing from the Brian Howe era. And then Simon Kirke, he was their longtime drummer. He spoke next. He got up on stage and he gave a really, really nice, touching speech. And you know what he said? He said, thanks to his road crew, his roadies. He's like, thank you to all the roadies over the year. He thanked his family. He even thanked the wives of the other band members. But you know what he didn't do? Not one damn word about Brian. Then this was precious. Paul Rodgers, he had to appear in a video message because of his health problems he's got right now. He kept it short and sweet, and I do not wish the man anything but good health. But still, not one mention of Brian. In fact, it's well known he hated Brian. You know, the guy that abandoned the band to do his own thing, to be, selfish and self-aggrandizing. Yeah, that guy. Not one mention of Brian, the guy who held the band together and took them onto the MTV and onto the radio for a decade while he was out goofing around. Yeah, not one acknowledgement of the guy who carried the band while he was gone. Look, you're like, all right, Stark, that's enough. And I understand that, but this is something I have to get off my chest. I know the Hall of Fame has had a long history of overlooking artists. This isn't groundbreaking, guys. Think about it. It took forever for them to put Kiss or Rush and so many others in. And it still, get this is amazing. They still haven't put bands like Iron Maiden and Motorhead. I mean, Lemmy's turning over in his grave right now. And then they turn around and they fast track folks that leave you scratching your head, like Dolly Parton. But this moment with Bad Company, for me, it was simple. They had a chance to say the name of the man who kept that music alive for almost a decade while Paul was goofing around, and they didn't do it. And I sat there thinking, Brian deserved better than this. He deserved at least one mention. They didn't even scroll his name on the screen. I believe he deserved, my God, at least one small moment of recognition. Now, sadly, he passed away in 2020, but the man gave his voice and his heart and his soul to a band he believed in. And I think you've got to honor that. So here's my challenge to all you whiskey freaks. I want you to do a side-by-side. Pick 5 Paul Rodgers tracks, and then pick 5 Brian Howe tracks. Listen to them back to back. Do it for me if you would. Let the vocals, the energy, and the emotion hit your ears without any nostalgia bias getting in the way. Then tell me that Brian didn't deserve it. At least a mention at the Hall of Fame ceremony. I know what I hear. You tell me what you hear. And yeah, I definitely need a pour after all this. And good news, I'm going to have that pour right now because it's my favorite time of the podcast, my review. So today, my whiskey freaks, I'm pouring a smidgen, because that's the sample I could get, was a smidgen of Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend, batch number 228. They have just a pile of batches. It's one of the complicated things about Joseph Magnus. They try to make it less complicated on their website. It is not less complicated. Suffice it to say that these are small batches and they make them all the time. So this batch, I believe 228 was from either last year or the year before, but I think it was last year, actually 2024. So let's talk a little bit about Joseph Magnus, because I always like to give you 2 minutes of history, and then I like to do the sipping and the talking and the reviewing. This one actually goes way back, and it's a cool history, really. I mean, like back before the Civil War. Joseph was just still a young boy in 1864 when his dad was killed, and that meant he had to help raise his 3 younger siblings. So it was a tough start for him, but he figured life out pretty darn quick. When he got older, he jumped into business and he realized there was some real money to be had in wholesale liquor. Now, by the time he was 26, he had a whole liquor empire running in Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, Joseph, he cared most about quality and age, and he swore that good whiskey encouraged good conversation and what he called pleasant thoughts. I tend to agree with him. Now, his big release back then was called Murray Hill Club Whiskey, and he pushed it into every top bar, every hotel, and every cafe that he could back then. His whole pitch was simple. Try it once, and you'll want nothing else. Now, a fun fact about Magnus, he was known for doing things that were pretty innovative for his time. And he used long aging processes, he used blending, and he even used early finishing practices to improve flavor. And that comes into play into batch 228 today. Well, then Prohibition happened. And like many whiskey makers, the brand just disappeared. Magnus himself, he died in 1927, and his company never reopened after repeal ended. Or after Prohibition ended at repeal. And just like that, his name just kind of drifted away. Now, fast forward to the early 2010s. Joseph Magnus had a great-grandson who inherited a trunk filled with old family artifacts. And inside this trunk was original bottles of Murray Hill Club whiskey from pre-Prohibition. And so the family brought these bottles, one of which was 122 years old, to modern distillers and blenders so they could take a look at them and they could analyze them. So this group of respected whiskey pros, including Nancy Fraley, and that's a name we all know from the whiskey world, they were brought in to recreate that style of whiskey. And they actually reverse engineered the flavor profile by studying those surviving bottles. And it allowed them to blend barrels in a way that honored that original product from Joseph Magnus. And now today, Magnus is known for one thing more than anything else, the cigar blend. And that brings me to batch 228. This one comes in at 108.92 proof, and it's built from a blend of sourced bourbons. From what I'm understanding and gathering, again, it's difficult to glean information on Joseph Magnus. It doesn't matter what website you try to look at. There aren't many reviews out there. Most of this stuff appears to be 9-year MGP, and then you've got a good amount of 16-year Barton and a little bit of 20-year MGP. So you've got some pretty old whiskey in here. Now, like the rest of the cigar blend family, and there's a lot of batches in here. This is 228, and they're up way past 228 at this point. Now, it's finished in Armagnac, sherry, and cognac casks. It's non-chill filtered, which I love, and it's always bottled at the natural cask strength. And Nancy even explained at one point why these tiny batches are. She said one batch is basically, I think she said it's about 80 gallons when it's all said and done. And you get somewhere between 380 and 420 bottles, depending on how much the Angel's share is. Anyway, again, very difficult to get information on this one, but I got the sample for free. Again, not from the distillery, not from anybody that has any skin in that game, and that's why I'm reviewing it today. But again, difficult to get information on this one, in all fairness. Now, the proof changes batch to batch because it all depends on what barrels she pulls. And batch 228 ended up at 108.92 because it leaned on some lower rack MGP. For comparison here, the lowest proof ever in the whole cigar batch series, like I said, which is enormous, that was batch 1, and it barely cracked 100 proof. This one, like I said, 108.92. And I'm not going to lie. There have been a lot of batches, like I said, and that's because it's all ultra small batch stuff. And I think I mentioned this too. They've got a website at Joseph Magnus, but the part where you can take a look at the deets on each batch, it doesn't work very well. So anyway, good luck figuring out all of them. All I know is I've heard good things about most of them, and that's just another reason we're talking about Magnus Cigar Blend today. So the company, Joseph A. Magnus and Company. The distillery is sourced whiskey. The age, I already talked about all the ages in here, but it's at least 9 years old and up. And I did, after scouring Al Gore's amazing internet, after searching and searching, I found a comment made by Master Blender Nancy Fraley This batch is mostly 9-year-old, 36% MGP with a little bit of 16-year-old Barton and 20-year-old MGP. Like I said, it couldn't be more confusing. Needless to say, it's old whiskey. And I've got to be honest, right away, I'm not thrilled. You have to work so damn hard to figure out what exactly is in this bottle. I'm going to try not to let that influence me when I taste it today. But you guys know it really irks me. If it's good, it's good. But damn it, why does it have to be so difficult? Yeah, anyway. So the price. On paper, it's about $170, but nobody on earth's actually seen it at that price in a long time. And the only way you're finding it for MSRP is if you wander into some forgotten grocery store on a desert highway in New Mexico, like the kind of place where the shelves are full of dust and expired beef jerky, and the shopkeep is a guy named Gomez, who definitely thinks the year is still 1998. Now today I'm tasting with a Glencairn, my favorite limestone branch Glencairn today, actually. Let me get some of this in my glass. That doesn't leave me a lot left. All right, the color. And I always say this, I'm going to say it real quick again today. Never judge the color by the bottle alone. I don't have the bottle in front of me. I do have a sample bottle. You don't want to judge it in any of that. You only want to judge the color when it's in your Glencairn. So that's how you evaluate it. In my opinion, the darker the hue of the whiskey in your Glencairn, the deeper the flavors might be. It's not always true, but it is sometimes, so it's worth noting. And I'm going to say it every single time. Now, the color of this whiskey in my glass is a nice deep mahogany color. And it's one of those bourbons that right off the bat, I'm thinking this has real potential, guys. Look, not that the color determines much of anything at this point, but like I said, sometimes you can get at least an inkling about what's what. Looks like a strong pour of bourbon to me. All right, no reason to belabor this, so let's move on to the nose. So straight away, I'm getting this strong oakiness right off the bat. Nice dark caramel, and there's some cinnamon in here too. It's really inviting, and with as dark as it is, like I said, with as much care as they claim to have been putting into this, I'm ready to sip this, guys. All right, let me take a sip. Interesting. It's got a really great mouthfeel. It's pretty oily as I move it around. I'm doing that Kentucky chew, and I guess old Joe Magnus would approve of that. But either way, I'm doing the Kentucky chew to coat the entire inside of the mouth. Let me take another sip. Yeah, this proof point, 108.92. I can't get that number out of my head. Can't say 108. I don't want to say 109. It's 108.92. That proof point is hitting spot on. It's just the right amount of heat here. And that oakiness, it's hitting pretty doggone hard. I'm even getting some like nutmeg and this real strong note. I can't describe this any other way than like a lightly burnt toast. And I don't mean like it's setting off the smoke detector type of burnt toast, but like, dang, I wish I'd have caught it 5 seconds earlier to get it out of the toaster kind of burnt toast, right? It's not terrible. It's not a, oh, I got to get the knife out and scrape it off the bread. It's not that. Let me get another sip. Yeah, that cinnamon I got off the noses here pretty significantly. And as I experience the finish, it's a pleasingly long finish, by the way. And I can't, guys, I'm not wearing my ascot today. So I may not get every single tasting note here, but it's got like this burnt caramel note in here too. And it comes in here on the finish alongside and if you know me, it comes in alongside this really nice tobacco note. That tobacco note for me is always a winner. Let me take one more sip. Let me take one more sip. Yeah. And it's interesting. I reviewed Ramus Repeal Reserve, I guess a month ago or maybe a little bit. I'm getting a lot of the same vibes off this, and the ages are very similar to what's in this particular whiskey. Obviously not finished in the way that this Joseph Magnus was, but I'm getting a lot of the same vibes here. So what's my verdict? Well, I'll have the answer right after the money spot. Hey, whiskey freaks. Quick announcement here. I wrote a book. Yeah, me, a real book with real stories. It's called Whiskey Wisdom and Bourbon BS. Barrel strength legends, lies, and untold tales, and it's packed with dozens of wild, weird whiskey tales from the strangest corners of bourbon history. And every chapter ends with one question. Was it whiskey wisdom or was it BS? You want to learn about whiskey history and have fun while you're doing it? Well, then you need to grab this book. It's just $10 on Amazon Kindle. It's cheap, it's fun, and all the cool kids are doing it. So don't be left out because you want to be cool too, right? Did I mention it's just $10? Yeah, and you can read it on any device with the free Amazon Kindle app. Just hit the link in the show notes, grab a pour, grab the book, and enjoy the whiskey history. And Christmas is coming, guys, so get the book for somebody you love. You can gift it to them through Amazon. It's a thing, for real. It's true. That's Whiskey Wisdom and Bourbon BS. Barrel strength legends, lies, and untold tales. So, on the Blind Tasting Podcast, there are 3 verdict options. Are we going to keep it? Are we going to collect it? Or are we going to cull it? Now, to keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet or bar. This stuff's good for a pour anytime, but there's really no need to stock up on it because you can find it pretty much any day of the week. To collect it, grab another bottle or maybe 2 since you find it so damn delicious, or it just may not be easy to get your hands on. And the last option is cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend Batch 228, I say, keep it. Yeah, I mean, if you got the cash to pick it up, and you're going to need a lot of it, and you're into cigars, and you're into bourbon, or you just love a superb pour, this is for you. I think the word of the day, boys and girls, is bold. Remember Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood? Remember Eddie Murphy? Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. Remember that? So the word of today is bold. And these flavors in here in this cigar blend are bold. And that's clearly by design. The name cigar blend, from what I'm gathering here, is not a marketing trick. This blend is intentionally built to stand up to, like, alongside of an actual cigar. Now, think about it. And I don't smoke cigars. I love the smell of cigars, but I don't smoke them. But think about it. A cigar brings a strong, smoky profile that can sometimes wash out a normal bourbon. That's what I've heard. Cigar blend bourbons are created to hold their ground while you're smoking. The flavors stay present, they develop as you sip, and they maintain structure even with the cigar right there with them. Now, a big part of that depth comes from the finishing barrels. The Armagnac, the Cognac, the Sherry, the Madeira, and sometimes a combination of all of those, like we had here, the Armagnac, Cognac, and Sherry in this batch 228. These finishes, they bring richer, darker notes, like dried fruit, tobacco, oak, and molasses. See, I think maybe I missed molasses on this one. Maybe I mistook it for that burnt caramel. But anyway, they add weight and complexity, and those finishings make the whole pour kind of feel more layered. And here's the thing. You don't have to smoke cigars to enjoy these bottles. A lot of people who buy them simply want a bourbon that feels elevated, that higher proof, like I said, the 108.92, the bold flavors. And this one has really bold flavors. It's got that fantastic mouthfeel, and you've got that sense that you're opening something meant for a slower, intentional sip. And these kind of, like the Magnus, these kinds of releases, limited releases, and these small batch releases, and these refined finishing techniques, they only add to the appeal. The name cigar blend, it also sets a certain expectation. It signals that this is a full-bodied bourbon with structure, depth, and a more mature flavor profile. And some people really gravitate towards that. I know I do. So whether you're pairing it with a cigar or you're just having a pour at the end of the night, a cigar blend bourbon brings a kind of style that stands out. It's big, it's complex, and it's meant to be taken seriously. Or not. I mean, look, I'm not your mom. You just enjoy your bourbon the way you want to enjoy it. Have your bourbon however you like. Last but not least, guys, as always, these are the folks getting it done. I got to give a shout out to the farmers, the distillery production guys and gals, the warehouse workers, the bottlers, and the truck drivers. These are the folks that make it happen. So cheers to all of them. Well, that's all I got for today, Whiskey Freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your #1 attitudinal bourbon destination.